G'day everybody, welcome to our morning question and answer session. We've had some really good questions come through, and I'm inside at the moment. This morning we're getting some more good rain here at Mudgee, so as you guys probably know, it's things are coming away pretty good here, and so it's nice to see. But with the rain comes all sorts of other things. So we're sort of been suffering through a long drought, and then with rain now I was trimming a few horses' feet, and we've got the onset of all the other little sort of things that you get with wet weather, mud and rain and things like that. And I'm sure you guys who live in some wetter climates or on the coast or that know all about all those hot, humid, wet weather things that horses get. And just talking about that subject right now is going to get me on to the first question, which is a really good question. Now, Amy, hi Mark. This might be a silly question, and by the way, Amy, there's no such thing as a silly question, because I've heard someone say, I've got a silly question, and they've asked a question, and it's been sometimes the most relevant question an interesting question to answer. And a lot of times when someone's at a clinic and someone doesn't, they'll come up to me quietly and ask me a question because I don't want anyone else to, they don't want to be embarrassed about it. If they just ask the question, they probably find that half the other people that are sitting there go, oh, geez, I'm glad they asked that. But anyway, do you have a checklist when looking to purchase a horse? Obviously, this might be specific to what you want the horse to be able to do. But do you have any go-to requirements or things you'd like to see from a horse when viewing? So, obviously, Amy, there's specific. Are you buying a young horse, and are you buying a kind of a sound, sort of medium, quiet ridden horse? There's so there's a big variation. If you're expecting to go and buy a project horse, then you're going to be not so picky as someone who just wants the sound riding horse. So, what I would say firstly is I might just talk about just a horse that's been ridden, ridden. If you just want a kind of good riding horse, that's kind of good overall, all-rounder riding horse, I suppose I'll probably look into that first. But what we are going to do now that you've asked that question is we're going to write out a list and put it up on our site. To give people some proper guidelines, whether they're buying a young horse or an older horse and things like that. Now, I put pen to paper, which is a pretty good thing for me to do. I've got a few little notes here. Now, the first thing I'd say is a horse needs a vet check. If there's conformation faults that you're unaware of, that's a problem, especially if they're bad ones. If there's a conformation fault that you're aware of and you're okay with it, then that's okay. If that fault is not going to keep the horse, sore or cause problems with it for a long time. So first of all, I'd say to everyone, make sure you get a vet check, and a vet check that will go over the conformation of the horse. Definitely check their age. I've heard too many horror stories about horses, people buying a 10-year-old on the brand, and the owner said it's 10, and the brand says, well, it's 10, but it's actually 20. Now, that's a you're buying a 10-year-old horse thinking that you've got a fair bit of youth on your side, but you've actually ended up with a 20-year-old horse with all sorts of joint problems and whatever, and you weren't aware of it. So basically, you have to be aware of what you're getting, the age of it, and the conformation of it. Now, when you're with your vet, you want to sort of, some vets, that they're all different. They're all under sort of different workloads, and the things you want to be looking at first of all is, where do you live? Do you live in rocky, hard country? And is your desire to be riding barefoot? Are you out on the sort of softer plains and that's not so hard, rocky country? So things like that are going to determine what feet you're looking at in a horse. Some people, they want to ride barefoot on a horse, but they end up with a horse that takes them a lot of money and a lot of time to fix up their feet to be riding barefoot, especially in the terrain, or the amount of kilometres that they want to do on their horse. So feet are very important. Now feet can be fixed. Now some people will buy a foot problem knowing they're a barefoot trimmer or something like that, and they can fix problems and sort things out. Now if you have a good trimmer that you know, and the horse has got some issues in there that just need a bit of footwork, it'll fix it. As long as they're issues that can be fixed through the trimming, not permanent issues. As I say, if you know about it, it's okay. If you don't know about it, so from the feet you go up through the body, and basically you get a confirmation check on your horse from the vet, make sure it can travel freely. If there's any lamenesses, that's when you want to get more tests done and things looked at. Why the horse is lame, ask the owner questions about it. Are they aware of it firstly? And as you can only sort of work with what the owner tells you, which is sometimes hard. So I'm not going to go through all the details of that, but basically, if you're going to have a horse that's got fairly bent legs and splays out, and you're going to do a lot of miles on it or a lot of hard work, if you're mustering all day, if you're doing endurance riding, if you're in that sort of game where you're going to ride a horse a lot and do a lot of miles on it, then or a lot of sort of competitive jumping, things like that, then the confirmation has got to be a lot better than a horse that you're just going to go trail riding on every now and again. So if the horse is sort of, they've got to have all their legs nice and straight, and all everything working in nice balance, not a knee twisted in or things like that that's going to cause any problems from the workload. But a horse that paddles a little bit, or is a bit not so good in the hocks, or twists out a little bit, and those things aren't such a problem if the horse is only having a quiet kind of work life, I suppose. So those things you can kind of turn a blind eye to a few things that aren't going to be a problem. But if it's a really performance horse or a high level, does a lot of miles and a lot of hard work, then definitely the feet, and then you sort of be looking at a shorter, a horse that's more able to carry weight for longer. So confirmation from the length of the back, how strong it's going to be in the back, to the legs, to how good the feet is very important. Okay, you do want the vet to look in their mouth for not just the age, but also if there's teeth missing, rotten, broken teeth, if there's any anything showing like that could cause major issues later on. You want to know about it. If you know about it, then you're quite happy to fix it. But if it's when it's unknown, and you end up with this kind of problem, that's going to be a big problem for the horse and yourself. Okay, so when you turn up to see a horse, if you turn up late, well, chances are the horse might be tied up, half saddled up, ready to go, and you miss a lot of things. So I read a book once, and someone was saying you got to turn up early. Now I know turning up early is a little bit rude in etiquette, but in buying a horse, some people get a bit done with their horses before you got there. They've had a chance to quieten it down, ride around, do all this stuff, get it half dull, and then sort of dry it out and make it look like nothing's ever happened, and then you turn up unawares of all this and ride it thinking you got a reasonable horse, but really what happened is that horse had a fair bit of work before you got there. So sometimes turning up half an hour early and surprising someone accidentally is probably not such a bad thing. For etiquette, it's a bit rude, but if you want to see, you want to hope everyone's honest. But I'd like to think I'm an honest person, but I've heard too many horror stories about people buying horses, especially kids' horses and stuff, that have really been a handful and too much horse. So, if the horse is tied up and saddled when you get there, then probably I'd be a bit wary. I'd like to see the horse caught with a few other horses or in its paddock or whatever. What's it like when they go out? Is it just kind of see a person and run off, and then there's a kind of a deep mistrust of people and a fear of them? Is it just a horse that goes, oh, here comes someone, I'm not interested today? Well, that might be a little bit different. That just needs a bit of education. Some horses, sometimes you walk out there not interested, and they might wander off, but when you see the person walk up to catch that horse, how frightened is it? Is it really standoffish? Is it kind of, look like it's half shutting down when they're catching it? Things like that you'd look at. When you got your horse, when they catch the horse and saddle it, then you get to watch the whole process of is that horse tightening up as they girth it up? Do they have to kind of work it for half an hour to get it to kind of loosen up because it's so cold backed or something like that? Those are things that you can go, well, can I deal with that, or is it too much for me? Not everyone wants to go home and become a horse trainer just because they got a horse. It's a bit too much for them to work. So knowing it before you buy it is very, very important. As I say, if you see it and you can accept it, then that's fine. Then it's your job to go and help that horse out and fix it. But before I go too far into that, do you live on the coast? If you live on the coast, never buy a horse that's suffered from itch ever. I don't care how many modern medicines and rugs they can sell. There are some horses, it's cruel to keep them on the coast or in wetter environments, because you'll use that much magic potion on them and all these things, and they just live a very uncomfortable life. They're horses that are better in a higher, drier climate or further west or anything like that. So I'd say, does the horse suffer from anything if you're buying it and you live on the coast from out west? Some people, you'll never know. So sometimes you won't know if the horse suffers from itch, but gee, if you get it down there and it does suffer from itch, then maybe see if you can find a home for it away from that. We've got a horse here at the moment that, gee, looks nice now, but when he got here, it was in the winter time on the coast, and the reason we've got him registered here is because she just said, I just feel so sorry for him. She said, I've tried everything, but and now he's got nice coat, and he's just the last bits of itch you kind of see just growing out and falling out in his hair, and he's not scratching. He's grown his mane and tail back, and he's a happy horse. And yeah, so that's very important. If you got a horse with really kind of not very good structure in their feet, then sometimes a climate that's a bit drier is probably going to be better than being in wet ground all the time. That opens them up to all sorts of foot problems like seedy toe and stuff like that. So things like that, we have to be very careful when we buy horses. So back to the catching and the tying up. Watch the horse, get there early, see what happens. Then also watch how the horse interacts with people. Like I love watching a horse's expressions and eyes and things like that. That's going to determine, that's going to sort of tell you the information you need to know how the horse feels generally just about people, okay? So if someone's selling a horse that's potentially a bomb-proof horse, you're going to walk in and it's going to look bomb-proof and it's going to stand there, and they might swing flags and crack whips and do backflips off it. But I'm not impressed with that. What I'm impressed with is if they're doing all that and the horse is kind of interactive and thinking about all the things and soft in the eye still, and or even a bit worried sometimes and shift a little, or even if it's kind of interactive and some things bother it, but you can tell it sort of adjusts and thinks about it and then settles itself down. But if it's just kind of standing there with its ears kind of in that sort of not pinned back position, but that shut down position, and its eyes stay kind of fairly neutral and dull, and it's got like a tight expression on its face, and it's just standing there putting up with it all like it looks like a rigid door, then I'm not impressed. I've seen plenty of those horses being bought, and then people have got in big trouble because all of a sudden all this tension's come out somewhere on the trail or something when the horse blew up. So all the amount of arena education and desensitising in the world won't impress me, especially if it's just shut down the horse. So you're really looking hard. If that horse you walk around it and it's expressive, it's flicking an ear, it's kind of looking around a little bit, it sniffs out to you when you walk up to it, they're positive signs that the horse is interactive with you, interactive with people. So if you walk up one side of a horse and it gets a little angry, well, it's telling you something. If it's too frightened to get angry and it just kind of shuts down, it's you know that maybe, but you'll see it because it'll have a more of a harder expression when it's shut down than a softer expression. Okay, and that'll be in the eye, the shape of the eye and things like that. So when you're walking around your horse, is it generally hard in the expression? Is it just still, ears still, not interactive? Then that horse, I'd want to see it under pressure. Like I'd want to see it, I'd want to kind of spook it a little and say, what happens when you are really frightened and you're allowed to react and think? Because some of those horses, when they are allowed to react and think, then, well, you can see something that you don't want to see. So so if the horse is communicating, when you walk down either side of the horse, is it trying to block you on one side? Can you walk down both sides equally? If you can't, there's a little area in there. If you can accept that, then that's fine. You keep going, and can the owner and you pick up the horse's feet? How much tension is there in the feet? How tight does it get when the person's at the back foot, tapping the back foot and things like that? Can they stretch it out? All those things, okay. Very important. If they're safe around the feet, things like that. And then, I could go through 100 things, but I'm just saying you just need to know. If you know and you can accept problems, then that's fine. The next part of it would be if the owner's got to trot the horse around to loosen it up for 20 minutes before they ride it, well, you know that it's either nervous still in the saddle, there's areas where it's carrying tension and they require that time to settle it down, which means I'm a trainer it's okay with that and I can improve. But watch how the owner girths their horse up when they girth it. Do they got to go a little slow, or can they just girth up normal and the horse is just quiet about it? If they go a little slow, pay attention to it. Watch how long the horse takes to let down. If you see any tension, any nervousness like that in the horse, well, you start to question. Has the horse ever bucked when it's been a bit tight and you haven't kind of taken it slowly? Things like that. They should already tell you that, but you should ask. What's its worst? What's the worst case scenario when I'm girthing it and I forget to do it slowly? What's this horse done? Has it pulled back and flipped over? Has it done this? Has it done that? You really got to see tension, and they set you up to fire a few questions and say, what's the problem here? Why is this horse so tight? I can see its eye tense up when you girth it. I can see it's a little bit fidgety with the saddle. You want to know the worst case scenario and try and sort of figure that out a little bit. Try and get a bit of honesty out of the owner. Now, next, once you've seen that, well, if you can deal with a bit of that tension and the horse, who did buck in it when it was getting started, but it hasn't for a while and things are fine, then that's fine, you can deal with it. But if you're kind of, just getting back into riding and you just want to go and you don't want to, spend the next 3 years getting your head around all this horsemanship to train a horse, then maybe it's something that might be too much for you, but at least you know that when you view your horse. Next thing, this is why we're going to probably do more of a description online about this, because there's a lot in it. As you can see, I could probably kind of talk your head off with all these things. But so now that we've kind of looked at that, next thing would be, can the owner... First, the owner rides the horse. If the owner's not willing to get on the horse, the only time maybe... No, like I ride a horse before and show people what the horse is about. I explain stuff when they come and view a horse, everything I know, the good, the bad, the ugly. And then they ride the horse with me, and then I try and make them come the next day and ride the horse with me and make sure that they understand the horse and they can deal with it. And then hopefully things work out. But if they just come and want to take the horse, then I'm not even going to sell it to them, because I want to see how that horse is going to go with that person. That's a personal thing of mine as a seller. But so can the owner ride the horse in the arena and out in the paddock? I would, if I'm buying a horse that I want to go and trail ride on or something like that. If I'm buying a project horse or a horse that's half started, then I want to see where it's at before I buy it. But if you're just buying a normal all-round horse, then basically you want to see that horse go out in the paddock, walk, trot and canter out in the paddock, okay? Look at it hard. Just look at the rider hard. Are they hanging onto that horse when it's cantering just in a paddock without other horses ahead of it? If they're kind of holding that horse back a little bit, and even though that horse might be able to come back to a loose rein walk after it, if they're holding that horse back and really pulling to keep it contained, and it looks like a fair bit of tension, then, well, you know if you can handle that or not, and you know if you can help that horse come down or not, and then you know also, well, if that's like that, just cantering around out in the paddock, what's it going to be like when my friends canter off ahead of me or something like that? So you watch carefully. But if that trainer says, oh, no, not today because I'm busy, or this, that and the other, well, they shouldn't have made an appointment to see you. unless you were pushing them against the wall to say, I really want that horse, and I'm going to, but you should allow time to view the horse, and they should allow enough time. But for the sake of people selling horses, I will say some people come and they're tyre kickers and they want to spend 2 hours with you, and you kind of know they're not going to buy the horse. So it's also a two-way arrangement there, but it's very important, if you're really keen on that horse, see it ridden outside, see it walk, trot, cantered, and even got up to a gallop, because that's important to see. Some horses they kind of lope along, but they've never been run, and as soon as they run, they sort of just freak out and run. And if you want a horse that you can ride safe, and it's sold as a good safe horse that you can go and ride, then it should have gone through all those things. So I want to see that, and then basically after that, you might have there's so many horses that are good horses, but they've got trouble in loading and things like that, and floating. You kind of want to see there and then, if they've got a float or something like that, whether the horse will at least load, or at least kind of, is it a scrambler? Has it ever had any, things in horse floats, any accidents like that? Any does it, is there any loading problems? Can it only go in a truck? Does it freak out in a 2-horse float? All those questions, you got to think of about asking, because you might end up with a horse that you get halfway down the road and you find out that it just sits down in a horse float, but they never told you that. They probably knew that, that's why they're selling it. And you probably told them that you want to take it to little like adult riding things or competitions, and they know that you want to travel it, but they never told you that it's not very good at travelling. So if you know about it and you're willing to accept it and help that horse, or travel it in a truck for a while until you can fix the float problem, whatever, as long as you know. So yeah, there's probably other things in there, but I'll go along a bit. I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea on things to look at when buying a horse. But make sure the rider rides it, the owner rides it, and you can see it in all its paces, kind of fresh. If they've got to work it, then at least you see what they do and see what the horse, how it comes down, and you know what you're getting. It's just that surprise of getting it, and also the drug side of it. That's why sometimes if you can line up the vet to be there when you view the horse, then if possibly, because there's still stories of horses being semi-sedated, because there are a lot of people in areas that can still get their hands on sedatives, and they semi-sedate their horses for viewing, and then all the problems come out later. So that's why a vet's got to kind of probably turn up with you if you're really concerned about things like that. If they're really dopey and doughy and kind of like plonking along and just not interested in the world, and they're kind of, if they're gelding and they're a bit loose in the pizzle, then you kind of go, hang on a minute, if they're a bit that's a bit abnormal, then you'd start to have a few alarm bells. Anyway, thank you very much for that question, Amy. I'll move along a little bit. By all means, if there's any more little areas that you think of, or anyone thinks of anything else that I haven't thought of right now, please post them through on Facebook, because everyone's sort of bought a horse that's been good or bad, or not, the horse has been bad or not right for them, and it hasn't been. So it's always good to know little ideas and things that people have come across. Susan, yes, Susan, I remember your horse. Hi, Mark, you met me in my paint mare a few times in Canberra, the one that hates you popping flags. So just about the flag popping, if I was working over here in the arena, her horse was very frightened of it. Now, some of it was a bit of what I talk about, horsemanship. Horses get frightened of flags because sometimes the flags drive them away, and this mare was a bit frightened of education, and the flag was something in her education that she hadn't quite accepted. So when I was using it, whether it's around her, near her, she got quite anxious. So we did do a fair bit of work at the clinic, getting her softer with the flag and to understand that she doesn't have to always run away from it. But it's going to be one of those ongoing things with her. But that's not really the question at the moment. She injured herself, and I'm doing in-hand walking, trotting with her. She tends to walk slowly, and I'm always asking her to walk a bit more forward to engage her body. Whenever I ask her to come forward, she pins her ears. If we are trotting, she sometimes gets close to biting. I'm curious on your approach to asking her forward. I've tried just upping my energy, trying to direct with feel first, and combinations of these always the same, ears back. Okay, so very not super common, but quite common. When you're out ahead of a horse leading it and you speed up, they're chasing you. That's what it sort of feels like to them a little bit. And it's like, you know, if I was tracking behind something, I'm either following something or I'm pushing something. And because she does carry a bit of anxiety about certain things, and there's you know, the cup's got a bit of worry in there in areas, and if she's a kind of one of those alpha kind of, you know, like we got young mares here that you know, when they were foals, you walk in with them and they kind of pin their ears and go, I'm scared of you, but I don't trust you, and you know, and they've got quite a strong dominant feel about them, about their expression, where others just go, oh, I'm a bit nervous, I might just run over there, and they just go straight to that kind of bit of a flight instinct. You know, and some horses, when you approach them, they're kind of really frightened and curious, and some horses are like, oh, I don't trust you, what are you doing? And, you know, so, you know, I've had foals that are yearling, they're yearlings and even younger than that, that I've been teaching to lead. And within a few strides of me walking ahead of them, following them, next minute you see their ears pinned and they're kind of like they're chasing you along. And it, you know, so sometimes leading out ahead of a horse gives them confidence, but sometimes it can make them feel like they want to come in and nip on you and get a little bit ear pinny and things like that. So what I do to deter that is, one, if a horse, and like obviously this is going to be more structured for your horses, if the horse is a little bit like that anyway. Some horses are not like that at all. They'll just follow along all day, flopping along and fine and just cruising along, no worries. Others are like that. Because she's like that, I would use less body language and a little bit more feel. So I wouldn't kind of perk up my energy and kind of perk up and run off and get her to run off, because that would probably cause that to happen. What I would actually do is I would actually do a little lesson of walking out ahead, because obviously another thing that I'll address that I was thinking about when I was reading the question earlier on, but is you said, I'll read it now actually, because it's important to this explanation. So I should add also, she's fine when she's a bit further from me, practicing social distancing, like everyone at the moment. But as we are going, she tends to sneak back near me, and then she gets grumpy, almost as if she thinks if she comes close, we'll stop. And then she gets upset when we don't. Yeah, so there could be a thing in personal space in there. When she's there, she gets a little bit more. When she's close, she doesn't feel so good about it. But what I would do is I would get her to trot up with the lead, but not your body language at all. So I'd probably have her. I'd have a long lead. I'd get longer than your normal lead rope, like something that's 2 or 3 times a lead rope length, and I might walk out ahead a fair way and have her just plonking along 5 or 6 or 7 meters behind me, and I might just get her to trot up through the feel of the lead. So you'll be walking at this speed, and then she'll trot up, and then you'll just, as you feel her getting a little closer, you just slow down. So she feels you slow down. She goes, "Ooh, stop." But you're not trying to turn and push her. You're saying, "Hey, trot up," and she'll trot up. She'll get her ears forward, looking at you, and then because you're just walking along, she'll slow down and settle instead of you kind of running off and her hooking on and chasing you and getting her ears back. So, and I do that again and again, and I just do a transition. Can you trot up off the field? Thank you. Can you trot up off the field? Thank you. And she'll kind of walk a little bit with you at your pace. Then you'll stop her. You'll put your lead out on the ground, so she stops, and like ground ties with it. You walk out ahead. You walk off. You give her room, so she trots to give it a trot up, to let her trot up, and then you just pick up the feel of that rope, and you'll just let her trot up to you. So that lesson gets her to trot up towards you, but she's not chasing you. She's actually getting closer to you like that. Now she might get a bit funny. Now if you out of the corner of your eye, you're looking back, and you see her start going like that, just turn around and look at her, face her. Just square off, turn around, face her, and go. And she'll go, whoop. She'll see you turn around and look like that, and her ears will come forward. Because instead of you facing away from her, going away, you'll just turn around, and she'll go. And a lot of horses go, and they'll just stop like that, and they'll look, and it'll bring their ears forward. And you could repeat that a few times. The other thing I'd say is maybe for a little while, do that transition, but don't allow her too close to you. So just keep her in her comfort zone and allow her to do those little trot ups in her comfort zone, outside of the spot where she puts her ears back until she gets really good at just trotting up and relaxing, and she's not actually chasing you or pushing you. She's just doing little lead up transitions, but it's not like you two are running along together. And when she gets really good at that, you might just start to, as she trots up, you just might say, I might just go with you a little bit, and then I'll slow down and just do, instead of going a long way trotting, or you just do short little distances where she's got to slow down and speed up again, and do it in transitions. And the other thing too is, if you kind of just want to change the thought a little, you can sometimes just have a little flag beside you or bang your leg or something like that. As soon as she starts to knuckle down and get that kind of ears back expression, you might just bang your leg and say, "Hoi," and she might go, "Whoop." But sometimes for the horses that have been pushed away from energy and been trained in that kind of I'm the alpha, I'm going to push you away approach, that have got that kind of cooped up anxiety because of that, when they've been educated in their groundwork, to them it's felt like they've been pushed down the pecking order, because they've got that cooped up feeling of anxiety. And when you get too big on them, then sometimes you can bring out more of that feeling. So that's why just spinning around and being a tree, not turning around and saying block him, but just being a tree, just makes them go whoop. But because you're not pushy, they go, oh, nothing happened. Oh, I can relax again, and you let them come down. Sometimes popping that flag, the popping the flag might work, banging your leg might work, but sometimes it could just make them get a little bit anxious and cause a bit more of that angry look. If it does that, then maybe that's probably the wrong way to go. But sometimes it just pops that thought and breaks it, and it does help some horses. I'm not going to say it's going to help them all. It might be good for some and not so good for others. But yeah, little transitions, trot up transitions, more to the feel. Don't get her in too long of a habit, too long of a repetition that makes her feel like she's pushing you along. And just remember that for everybody else, as I go on to the next question, is if your groundwork is making your horse feel like it's getting pushed down the pecking order, then you're always going to have a negative, bad feeling in it. So your groundwork has to make a horse feel that it's moving around you or with you without feeling you're pushing on it all the time and making it move away from you, like you're saying go away. There's a big difference between saying go there and go away. Now, she might have been a stronger minded mare in the first place. What I mean by strong mind, probably bad expression, she might have been one of those expressive mares that says I don't like this in the first place, but she's also had fear, so she's going to have that negative look on her and that angry look. But if you take away all that pushing in your groundwork and start to show that she can do things, but it's not a push-pull relationship, then she'll settle down, and a lot of that ear pinning might just go away. Okay, thanks for the question, Susan. I hope it gives you some clarity or some ideas, and there's also lots of other things you could try, but we'll kind of leave it there with that now. And yeah. Okay. Fiona. Now, this is an interesting question. It's kind of leading a horse and dealing with dominance, as in, when we're leading horses past other horses and other herds and things like that, then they might have a horse that's quite dominant in the herd, and then all of a sudden, when their little bubbles get close to each other, then we've got a horse that we're leading that starts to kind of interact and fight with the other horses. What was that? And fight with the other horses, and that's what's sort of happening there. So I'll read the rest of the question. I've led Clipper further down the narrow lane between paddocks. Every time I see him, yeah, we have been doing a bit of groundwork, and I think he's getting more trust in me. I put him on the other side of me to whoever is playing silly buggers. So what you mean there is basically you're in between him and the other horse, I guess, just to make it. So, and that's a good idea. Like when you're leading a horse, whether it's past something scary or past something, is sometimes you put yourself... Now, you do have to be careful, because if you're between him and a horse that he wants to attack, then you're going to get pushed. So, if you had... Say, just before I go any further, we're going to talk about education, then we're going to talk about sometimes you just got to do something to be safe. Say, for instance, you were leading someone else's horse, your own horse, whatever, but it's not quite educated. You had to get it from A to B, and you don't have a big horsemanship lesson and all this kind of philosophy in your mind that you're going to do this, this, and this, and have this perfect blah, blah, blah. You just got to get it from here to there. And someone gave you a horse and said, this horse lunges at other horses, be careful. Well, if you were kind of a fairly sort of timid person, or you didn't think you can sort of deal with that horse, or then you wouldn't stand between the horse and the other horse. So for everybody, safety first, and obviously we learn so we can evolve our education with our horses and set things up so we have more control of our horses and a better understanding. But if you were just leading a horse that you had to get from A to B, and you knew it was too strong when it saw other horses and wanted to lunge at them, but you had to get it up that laneway from A to B, then you would probably stand on the other side so the horse lunges and you can kind of just pop it with the end of the rope, but it's not lunging across you, or you set it up so you're not going to get trombled, because some horses sorts of so strong they will just push over the top of you. And that's why we have education, and we learn and we improve ourselves so those situations happen a lot less, and we get our horses having a better understanding. If you were leading up a laneway and there was something very scary on that side, then you would be between your horse and the scary thing. So your horse would just shift away from the scary thing. But if you were the scary thing, then the horse, then the horse would push over you to get away from the scary thing. So in any tight laneways, set yourself up to be safe. Now, what you're doing is you're sort of saying, I'm the herd leader. You're keeping the distance so he can be further away from the horses. And it seems to be working, except when the dominant horse comes up to the fence. So I'll just go into the rest of the question. So if you think you can have a reasonable control of him and you can kind of be more the leader in that situation, then you would start saying, I'm going to be closer to the other horse so I can push the other horse away. You don't have to do it. That's not your business. I'm the leader. And you would set up a situation like that. But as I said first, safety first. If that L hasn't been worked on and you just got to get that horse from A to B, put yourself in a safe position. If the horse gets away, whatever, but you don't want to be trombled underneath the horse and the horse runs off and you've got a broken leg on the ground, because either way, once you get trombled, the chances are the horse is going to run off anyway. Okay, so back to the education side of it, without confusing anybody. Now we're back in education. You've worked with your horse for a bit. Well, there's going to be times there where you're going to be on that side of that dominant horse and you're going to take leadership of the situation. So you're on the other side to the other horses that are playing silly buggers, and keep my intent clear to where I am going and not let him pass me. If he wants to crane and look and give them side eyes, that's his business, but I'm keeping moving. Sometimes I'll change my walk speed a bit to see if he is following the rope. There is one horse that will run down the fence at him like he's jousting, and this is a bit much for Clipper. Then he will put his neck up to the full lipazan and then get plungy and reary. How can I help with this? Right, so that's the bit where it's too much. When that other horse puts a fair bit of, dominant body language into the equation, that's just too much for Clipper. What you're doing is right, having a clear intention and leadership. Sometimes we lose our leadership in controlling our horses. We get so engulfed in looking at our horse and controlling it and trying to sort of help our horse that sometimes we lose any clarity in our intention. And our intention, sometimes, if it's a good, clear, strong intention, is what gives our horse confidence to not get so uppity in situations. And by trying to sometimes be, it's almost like helicopter parents. You hear that saying, helicopter parents. There's we helicopter around our horses, whether we're trying to work out how they're feeling or, if they've got tension, because, I try and make people aware of a horse's tension and things like that, but I don't want people to helicopter around their horse and micromanage everything and try and because then what's the horse see you as? It's just like a buzzy fly around it all the time, trying to look at it and stare at it and control it. And so what you're doing is really good by trying to be strong, tree-like in your intention, as in, and you own your decisions, and just like a horse owns its decisions. And you've got to look like you own your decisions. If you don't look like you own your decisions, the horse will never believe in your decisions and never get confidence in your decisions. So what you're doing in that sense is very, very good, is you're owning your decision. I'm walking here, I'm walking like this, and we're going to go through here, and I'm not worried about those other horses. And then hopefully I say, nothing's perfect. That horse might go, oh. So like in the situation where that other horse comes, now, I would probably you can there's a few ways to go about it. Like there is one way that there is a point in riding, in safety, in herds and things like that, whether you're leading or riding a horse, that I encourage people to interact with their horses, understand how their horses are feeling, but let our horses actively think all those things. I want them to do that. But the big but is I have to set things up so I can take leadership at any time, because there are times that you have to say, I'm taking full leadership right now. You need to be happy with that. There's no question. Okay? To set horses up to be really, truly safe around us and in our environment and keep everyone and us safe, there's a point in anything where we have to go, I'm taking leadership right now. You've thought about it that enough. You've done that enough. I need to take leadership because this is going to get out of hand. Whatever. But the horse has to accept that. Okay? So that's something you could kind of work on away from that situation, is you might be able to set him up where he's getting a little bit bothered about something, and you say, reset, reconnect, here I am, center, relax, thank you, now let's go again. And you could do that maybe not near the other horse, the big horse, I mean, the one that really stirs him up. You could do that in another environment where he still gets up, but just work on that reset, thank you, I take leadership now, and we're going over here. So if he said, oh, I'm worried about that horse over there, you say, well, no, I'm going to go over here. And you keep an eye on him in the sense that he centers and goes, oh, that's a good decision, I'm going to go with you. You make these good decisions now, away from that other horse, I don't feel so bad. So you can make decisions like that to make him really hook onto your decisions. So if you do get up that laneway and that other horse is getting a little big, you can say, reset, I'm taking over now. We're going to walk fast through here, or we're going to get off the fence away from that horse as far as we can and get through there, and you're not to worry about him. I think we should go now. I think that's an important thing. The other thing you can do is sort of stop the other horse, as in, if that other horse comes in and you want to say, well, actually, no, we're going to pay attention to that other horse, but I'm the one that's in control here. I don't want you to protect me, because some people, I've seen horses that have really good connections with their owners. There's one little particular horse I'm thinking of right now that she turned and lunged at her owner to move her owner out of the way, to say, get away from that horse. That horse is not part of our herd. And I think that the owner got bitten quite hard, not because her mare was saying, I'm going to bite you because I'm full of anxiety. What I saw was a horse saying, quickly get over there. This is going to get out of hand. Get the herd over there. Get over there. Get over. And that's the way I saw it. And so the mare was protecting her owner, but because we're not a big horse and our skin's a bit softer, and especially when they get you on a knuckle of a finger, and that's where she actually got bitten. I think what ended up happening was she really hurt the owner and bit through her skin just by saying, quick, I want to protect you. So we have to, have a good connection with our horses, but at the end of the day, we can't have them taking over leadership on us, because it can get out of hand and unsafe. So back to the thing, when you're walking up to that laneway, you have to have set up some situations where you've reset your horse and said, reset, thank you. And you've got to work on that reset button. If you know your horse gets a little too anxious, that he starts lunging out and things like that, that you can reset him a little. And I would, instead of just doing fast walk, slow walk up that laneway, I would actually walk a little when he starts to get out there and starts to pay attention to some of the other horses that come up to the fence. You just say, reset, center. And you might just stand at a distance where he's kind of thinking about them, thinking about you, and work on a more concrete, good reset, so he can actually stand and relax with you and say, well, I don't need to bother about them. Okay, I can just stay here. Okay. If there are times that, you say to him, if he's anxious about something like a kangaroo or things like that, and you might say, I might walk over here with you and make a good decision because I think we should go over here because that'll make us feel better. And he goes, gee, you make good decisions, I'm going to go with you. Work on all those things a lot to get him really savvy with you. The other bit of advice I'd say is up that laneway. You could just take a flag with you, and when that other horse looks and thinks towards him and starts to go, I'm going to come across, before he gets to the fence and starts getting big, you just pop that flag out towards that other horse out there and say, when that other horse will think about that before he starts running. The thought, you see it happen before it happens. A lot of things happen before they really happen. They start happening back here. The thought change happened back over there, 10 metres from the fence or something like that. You can start to see that horse's inclination that's inside the paddock, see it coming, and you could say, wait, just pop that flag in the air a little bit, and that horse will see the flag and go, oh, I'm not worried about the horse that I was going to attack right there. I just saw a flag over there, and oh, that changed my thought. And then you can just stop it from happening. And then before that horse runs up to the fence, you've got through the laneway. Your horse went, wow, she's pretty cool. She got me through there pretty good. Knowing, she just has to kind of flick her little flag. You don't have ears to pin, but you could have just done that and changed that horse's thought in the paddock, and then walked through, and your horse thought, well, that was a good idea too, and that stopped the whole incident from happening. So, yeah, a couple of things to think about there to work on, but I hope that gives you a bit of help. But the stronger connection and the good feeling with you, and because your horse suffers, like Fiona, with your horse, he does suffer from a bit of anxiety around people and of years of being around people and maybe being misunderstood or not listened to. Then there's still going to be that level of anxiety that pops out. But once he's really soft and connected with you and feels good around you, then how he is around other horses and how he interacts around other horses when he's with you, generally in a lot of horses, gets a lot better. So the better he is with you and the softer he gets from the work you've been doing, these things will slowly improve. Okay, so you don't just have a lesson to fix that. You've got to have a whole kind of connection and everything else working too to really make it work good. Thank you. Michelle, with your online course, where is the best place to start? My mare is green but started or broken in. We have a great bond. Do I follow something like the Duchess? So the Duchess videos are the sort of the working starting horses. For any people online out there, they might have wondered where Duchess went. She's in the paddock at the moment. We've sort of turned her out. There was a reason for that. At the time I was very busy on a lot of clinics, and she actually needed a bit more of my time than just a few video lessons here and there following her starting progress. So that's why Fern continues the program. And yes, they are very good areas to start, because you can go through and look at a lot of things through when I'm working Duchess, and then the early rides in Fern when I'm getting her ready to get on and things like that, how things I look for and some groundwork ideas and stuff like that. And also it goes through some ways to guide horses, your horses have never been guided before, and Fern's at the stage in her videos on the series at the moment where we're starting to work on the earlier canter transitions. They're also working on some of the understanding of the reins and things like that. Some of the banjo ones, there's like a green lost horse. He's in there, reins with banjo. He was just a young horse that I was sort of had his teaching him how just to follow the reins and things like that and understand basic things. So that's very important. So yeah, I'd probably go to those areas. But then as you sift through, because it's not my people who understand or have watched my online videos and stuff, it's not a 1, 2, 3, 4 program that I'm sort of. I actually wanted people to think. In the end of the day, I wanted people to think for themselves a little bit and be your own horse people. And but I am starting to add a little bit more of, hey, this is more structured, fine details of things. Whether it be the way we hold it, the way we're using a rope and things like that. But a lot of the videos on the online course are bits of clinics, of bits of lessons that I thought were important for people to look at, and how I helped that horse, or how I did that, and a lot of them fit into the leading categories, or they fit into the sort of problem solving and things like that, and you just got to go through, and if you see sort of some words in the description of the video that might have some interesting things on your horse, then go in and say, oh, actually, yeah, my horse does that. That's the way I can think about that. But as in foundation and a bit more thorough things to look at, definitely the young horse starting and things like that, and the videos where I'm kind of, it's just me explaining something, okay? And then you can go through the lessons and where I'm just doing lessons with people, and kind of filter through that and find out what's going to be more suitable for you. Viv. Hello, Viv. You got another horse? I have a new horse. He's 21. Now, he was a 21-year-old, not 11-year-old, I hope. You bought him as an 11-year-old and found out he was 21? No. He's 21, and the only history I have is that for the last year or so, he has been used to give kids riding lessons. Now when I ride him, if I ask him to do anything else he doesn't, he'll shake his head and even stop and walk backwards. Where do I start? Yeah, all these good school horses that have gone, I'm throwing in the towel. It's kind of a common thing. What you got there, you buy a horse that kind of got a bomb-proof kind of, it's a bomb-proof horse. It's been a school horse. By the time it's 21 and you buy it and go, I just want to go for a ride on my bomb-proof horse, the poor old horse says, no, I've quit. I've been round and round and had all this not listening to me happening for so long that I'm throwing in the towel. And that's kind of what's happening. He's just said, I've had enough. And that scenario that you've just sort of put there, Viv, is a common scenario that I come across at clinics, especially from those school horses that have had a lot of different people on them and kids and all sorts of things. So, yeah, where do you start? Okay, first of all, you're going to have to start back at working out if he's interested in you. You'll probably find that he's going to be a pretty sort of shut down horse, as in, there's people, they're just going to kind of just come and start doing stuff to me. They're going to put saddle on me and I'm just going to stand there and put up with it because that's what I've had to do all my life. And it's, so a lot of those horses will tend to block you out a little bit. Like when I was talking about the checklist on buying a horse, is it shut down or interactive? So first you got to get him interactive, I guess, and pay a bit of attention every time you walk into him. Wade a little with him, tell him you're looking at him, you're listening to him, and there's a point there where you walk in at a distance, he might get a little bit like, oh, here she comes, and as soon as you see the old no expression, or the I'm a bit nervous expression, or the I'm going to block out expression, you might just step back a little and say, hey, I'm not going to come in if you're going to be like that. I'm going to wait a little bit, and then he might go, oh, she didn't just come in and chuck stuff on me and just start doing stuff that I didn't want to happen. She actually kind of noticed that I wasn't interested in her. And maybe that little soft interaction at a distance might start to open him up to you. Before you touch him, those horses that have had a lot of handling and a lot of work, before you touch him, try and get him to reach out a little bit. Just, how at clinics sometimes I might pop a flag or do something, or even if there was someone in the audience and everyone clapped and jumped on steps, that suddenly makes a horse go, whoa, what's going on? And that sort of suddenly kind of shut down school horse goes, whoa, wow, something's going on, I'm a bit frightened. And then if you were standing there near him, he might go, oh, can you help me? And he might reach out for you. Maybe something like that might get him to reach out, I don't know. But you when you walk up to him and if he's not at a stage that he's walking up to you and he's not going, oh, hello, I'm interested in you, I'm going to walk up to you. You don't have to get him into a stage that he's going to walk up to you. But when you walk up and you're gently breaking down his bubble as you walk in, and that's what they call approach and retreat. Like, for a long time, I think people who had a good understanding of approach and retreat, all approach and retreat was I approach you until I see a rise in anxiety. I approach you until I see an interest, which might be not come with any anxiety, but either way, you kind of said, oh, did you just listen to me? Thanks. Okay. Because you were listening to them. So approach and retreat is just walk until you touch the bubble of change of thought, and they have a change of thought. It could be negative or positive, and you just reward them for that and say thank you, and then hopefully by the time you get up to him, he reaches out and communicates with you a little bit. And with the saddling and bridling, you're going to have to be a little bit more on that sort of thing and try and listen to him a bit more. But I'm going to jump to the riding part of it, because there's a lot of work you can do there, and sometimes you can just sit on them and help them under saddle in riding them in a different way. So basically, he's used to someone going kick, 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 and he's probably, whether he's been a kids riding him all the time, he might have an instructor there that'll just kind of tap him and get him going, and while that instructor's there and that kid's on him, well, he just does what he's told. But anyway, so when you get on him and he just pins his ears and goes backwards, well, don't kick him forwards, because he said he knows you're going to kick him, and he's kind of prepared himself to brace and run backwards. So kicking him more is only going to kind of make him knuckle down like a rugby scrum and say, well, I'm just going to keep knuckling down. And then someone might say, well, just get bigger or put spurs or whip him forward. But he's 21 and he's shut down to things, and you dominating him is only going to keep him in the same place forever. Then you'll always have a horse that's kind of carrying that tension. So it's not about necessarily being the boss with him. It's about getting him kind of interested in trying something different and just searching again, having a little bit of desire. So maybe what you could do is when you get on him and you sit there for a little while and wait, just kind of, sit there, rub on him, sing yourself a song. I don't really care. But one thing you want to be looking at is, I'm not going to ride you. I'm not going to kick you in the belly and make you go forward. And he might go, oh, she didn't kick me in the belly and make me go forward. Everyone else does that. So then you might get off him and you go, oh, what happened there? Oh, that was easy. You might go and take your saddle off him and put him away. Maybe next day he might come out and do the same thing and rub on him a little and maybe pick up the reins and take him back a couple of steps and say, oh, that was a good boy. You did a nice backup. Get off and do something else. If you want a lot out of him, he maybe won't give you anything, but if you just kind of say thanks for surviving that first little bit, maybe he might go, oh, that wasn't so bad, and next time he's got a better mindset when you come and get on him. And all it is that better mindset that's going to help him start to go, well, I can walk forward. I can do that. It's him knowing that him thinking that you're going to kick him and he doesn't want to go forward because nobody listens to him, that's going to set him up not to go forward. So yeah, so beat him to another idea and say, I'm not like everyone else. I'm actually a little different. I'm going to wait and listen to you, but also I'm going to maybe do things a little bit differently. And when you're thinking I'm going to kick you, well, chances are I'm not. When you're ready and centered, I'm going to ask you to go and we'll go together. Now, this is not easy, Viv. It's sometimes easier just getting bigger and scaring them out of there and making them unhappy forever. But that has more complications, as in some horses, when they really throw in the towel, they throw it in big. So I don't encourage people just to get bigger and whips and crops and all sorts of things. I'd say tune into your horse a bit and try and get them to search and get interested, because he's 21 and he's going to have a fairly strong arm when it comes to an arm wrestle, especially if he believes in something that's better for him. Okay, so yeah, get on him, get off him, get him a little bit interested, and then if you go to sit forward and squeeze and you think he knuckles down like that and he gets that kind of expression that he's going to sort of suck back, don't necessarily just kick hard, or don't take the legs off and say, oh, you making that expression, maybe take the legs off. Just go to doing something different. So you might just quickly take the legs off and say, oh, okay, well, if you're thinking backwards, let's back up, and actually use the back up just to get him thinking backwards, because no one would have got on him and said, hey, why don't we back up for a little while and think about going backwards, and then you might just turn him out a bit, and then you might go again and say, I'm going to ask you to go, and he might go, I'm going to suck back, and you might say, well, how about you just come back with me, and you just break that you're going to kick thought by doing something different. So he gets the thought you're going to kick, and you say, oh no, I'm just going to ask you back. Now you're thinking backwards, well, I'll go back, we'll go back together. And then when he's thinking about the back up and he stopped thinking about you're going to kick, and he stopped thinking about I'm going to brace because he's thinking about the backup, you just stop him, turn him out a little, and then say, why don't we try again? Until maybe he goes, well, I might try something different, and then he stops thinking about that backup. That sucking back and bracing, and that's another way just to go about it. You just do something a little bit in the reins, but when he takes that little try forward without sucking back, don't ask for too much more. You might have to just go, wow, you just walked a step or two, I'm going to get off. So to get you off, he did a step. But the first time you didn't ask for anything, so because you didn't ask for anything when you got on him, then basically he didn't have anything to argue with. So you got on him and off him without an argument. And then over a week or so, you might start thinking, he might start to get a bit more interested in you, and he might start searching and going, oh, well, I can walk forward. But you're going to have to kind of treat him like a young horse that's lost that doesn't have confidence, because basically he's lost his interest and desire. So you're going to show him that he can do things himself. The other thing, Viv, that I'd encourage is get on him so take him from where he likes being away to somewhere else, we either lead him over there and get on him and let him walk back to where he wants to be. That's something like when I was starting a lot of horses, if I got these horses that were really confident, older kind of horses that just get on and go, oh, I'm not getting anything, I'm just not interested, thanks. They've been overhandled or whatever as they were young, and I just take them over somewhere else and get on them and say, well, your first ride, I'm going to say bump, 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 and you're going to go, oh yeah, I'm going to walk over to where I want to be. And then the horse went, well, that legs meant this is a good idea. So yeah, I would definitely do that. I would try and set him up so you can ride him to somewhere he wants to be. That's a lot of information, Viv. I could tell you lots of other little ideas, but I think that's probably, we'll leave that there and give you a little thought for that for a while. I mean, the talks are only 2 weeks apart. You might get 2 weeks down the track and say, well, I've tried this and this, and give me some more feedback, and it might be a question for the next live feed that we can kind of look into to help you out. But yeah, I think I'll just double check everything. I've got all the questions. I just saw you up there, Pierre. I've got your video too, which I've been just going through and doing to put up on our membership. So I'll have that up soon. I've got a rainy day today, which I'm going to be doing a bit more video lessons and editing and things like that. So anyway, thanks everybody for your questions, and I hope that you all get something out of it. And as I say, if anyone gets a little lost, and tries some of this, the people who've offered the questions, have got some questions. Sorry, Pierre, I've just got a little question here. Always quickly, I'll just quickly have a look at it. Yeah, okay, good, Pierre. I'm glad that little answer I gave before there for Fiona might have been similar to what you're doing with your horse there. So that's really good. Okay, everybody. Well, I'll just quickly scroll down, see if there's anything else that I haven't looked at as I was going. Good, awesome. Great. Thanks, everybody, and I'll talk to you in a fortnight. I'll see you later.